have won 8 straight.
This one was a hard one to believe, but if you stayed to the end, you are thrilled for the Black and Gold Nation as the Saints have made it 8 in a row. And thank goodness I got the 2 guys to my left to explain this one to us, because this one was just difficult to figure out. What a day in the Superdome. Great to have you with us here for Saints Tonight. Alongside my Super Bowl champ Scott Shanley and Hall of Famer Deuce McAllister, I'm Victor Howell. Our Saints insider Mike Neighbors will join us momentarily. Eric Ritchie will take you behind enemy lines in what was a very deflated and disappointed Washington Redskins locker room. You and Jim Henderson, final 5 minutes of the ballgame, we're talking about how the Saints had nothing to feel sorry about, but they certainly had some things to improve on because you're down 15 with 5:38 to go. How did they wind up winning this game?
Well, stroke of luck, and I think it was just a never-quit effort, and it was not just one guy. It was a lot of different guys. You go back and you look. It took a team effort from a lot of different standpoints, since you had to have some things to go right for you, and those things happen. And so, just being a resilient bunch, that's what they showed. That's what it took. This was, when you go back and look at the 7 other wins, this was the closest. This is, the first time that it wasn't a double-digit win, and, they found a way to win. And this is the first time, I think, ever, when you talk about Drew Brees leading a team back when they've been down more than 14 points in the 4th, and he comes back and he pulls it off. Yeah,
certainly the biggest comeback in Saints franchise history to come down from down 15 with 5.5 minutes to play. Scott, it was very interesting as you and I were talking throughout the ball game, and Deuce just kind of alluded to it. First time in the streak, you weren't playing a backup quarterback, an injured quarterback, a rookie quarterback. As you mentioned, they were playing a quarterback with a pulse. This morning, you said they should Washington should sign Kirk Cousins, get him off of this waiver that he's on and sign him to a long-term deal as a franchise quarterback. He was proving it today.
Yeah, what we talked about earlier this morning in the show, this is going to be the best quarterback they've played in quite a while. This wasn't Brett Hundley. This wasn't Tyrod Taylor. This wasn't Ryan Fitzpatrick. You go down the list. So I was interested to see how they would respond. Kirk Cousins, he put up a lot of great numbers. He had the Saints down, but you got to give this group a lot of credit. Like Deuce said, the resiliency they showed. They made the plays that they had to make in the end to win this game. A little bit of help, you get an intentional grounding from Cousins, gets him out of field goal range. But that's what teams that are on this type of streak do. They take advantage of the other team's mistakes and they make them pay for it, and that's how you get a W. Like
they certainly looked impressive in Buffalo when it was a runaway, but it was interesting to see this one. When they were up against it, backs against the wall, they pulled out. We have got so much to show you. Let's just get you to the highlights and take you through it. It's going to be fun to relive this one because it was quite the ball game. Now, we're going to pick it up in the first quarter. This is a sign we don't want to see. This is Marshawn Lattimore, and this is early in the first quarter. And you see him when he gets his ankle tangled up, trying to play defense as the Redskins went deep. This was after a Drew Brees turnover. Lattimore would not play the rest of the first half. We talk about Kirk Cousins. Now we pick it up. It's already tied at 3. Will Lutz kicked a 52-yard field goal after the Redskins got one. You saw the play there, the first one on 2nd and 6. Now 2nd and 3 at the 50. And Samaje Perine, who we did not talk about much this morning, we talked about their other running back who was leading them. And Perine stole the show today, 30 yards on that play. And then the story of second chances here. An almost interception. Ken Crawley almost gets the pick. This on 2nd and 6 from the 16. Comes down with it, just can't hold on, and so it's an incompletion. You just knew this was coming, right? Next play. 3rd down. Cousins, Chris Thompson, and there he is. Wide open for the 16-yard touchdown after what was almost an interception. It turns into 7 for the Redskins. They're up 10-3. How about some second chances for the Saints? 3rd and 4 from their own 26. Brees to Brandon Coleman. Incomplete, but wait a second. Brees takes a shot. Helmet to helmet. Personal foul, roughing the passer. Saints keep the ball. 1st and 10 at the 41. Brees taking advantage. Looks for Ted Ginn Jr. right across the middle. Great catch by Ginn Jr. 23 yards on the completion. And then Mark Ingram. Watch the burst of speed right here, and then he plants the foot. Great move, and he's gone. 36 yards. You've heard Deuce McAllister talk before. Ingram's got to trust himself. He did there with the speed and the plant, and he gets the touchdown. We are tied at 10. Bonus points for the dance. Washington gets the ball back before the end of the quarter. Cousins to Josh Doxson, and he gets it for 32 yards. These two teams combined for 251 yards in the first quarter. It was just going to be that type of game, tied at 10 after 1. Second quarter, 4th and 6. Punt? No. Long field goal? Washington going for it, doing what they need to do to win, and they get it done. Vernon Davis on the 26-yard completion, and the Redskins move the chains and keep the drive alive. 2nd and goal from the 1, and there's Perine again. He takes it in from 1 yard out to cap a 75-yard, 9-play drive that took just over 450. Redskins up now 17-10. That's when things started to get a little I don't know, weird, strange, ugly. We'll try to figure this one out. This drive started at the Washington 8. On 3rd and 2, Cousins gets the first down, then draws the personal foul penalty on P.J. Williams. So now it's 1st and 10 at the 37. Cousins to Chris Thompson, illegal formation. Go the other way. Next play, as jumping at the false start, Washington's going to push it back some more. Yep. 2nd and 9 now. The 41, Cousins to Jamison Crowder, incomplete. But wait a second, P.J. Williams gets called for the defensive holding. So penalties backing the Redskins up, but Saints penalties moving the Redskins forward. 3rd and 7 at the 33. Cousins picked off by Devontae Harris. But we're going to take another look at this one. Harris almost making up the turnover that the Saints had in the first quarter, but the ball slips out. The interception overturned. Now the 51-yard field goal, but watch in the circle. The false start. So the Redskins now don't get the field goal. They punt the ball. So the Saints get the ball back as the quarter's winding down. 2nd and 10 from their 20. Breeze to Kamara. That's good for 12 yards. 3rd and 8 from the 34. And Breeze looks for Ted Ginn Jr. and he finds him. Great throw back across his body as Ginn Jr. cuts across the midfield. Good for 22 yards. 1st and 10 now from the 44. And Michael Thomas, he grabs this one for 24 yards. The Saints wind up getting the ball down inside the red zone, have to stop the clock, and that's when Will Lutz comes on, and from 29 yards out, he's good. So Washington can't convert with the penalties. The Saints take over, and they do convert. So it's 17-13 Redskins as we go to the break. 3rd quarter, Washington with the ball. 1st and 10 from their own 25. Cousins back to pass, looks for Ryan Grant. 14 yards. Now what you see on this play here is that Lattimore came in the game and then comes right back out. Just not able to do it on the ankle. Had one play, he would go to the bench. We would not see him anymore in the ball game. Now following a long pause for an injury to Chris Thompson, who we saw earlier, the Redskins have to punt from their own 15, and they go for it. A fake punt. It's good for 5 yards after that long break. Maybe that break gave the Redskins all the time in the world to set this up, but they notice there's nobody there in that hole. The short snap, and the Redskins convert on the fake punt, 1st down. Now it's 3rd and 7 from the 40 of the Saints. Cousins to Ryan Grant. 40 yards, and there's not a Saint between him and Venice. What happened here? Scott, let's take a look, because number one, Cousins get popped. But with all those black jerseys, is that why he was that wide open?
Well, Kirk did a good job of standing in there, but I think in the back end, it was either man coverage or they were in and out. Sometimes you call it a gold coverage where those two guys have to relay who's got the outside guy, who's got the vertical, and they just got mixed up on who was doing what responsibility.
Cousins takes the hit for the team. Grant skips into the end zone. Washington 116 yards in the quarter. And now the Redskins have a 24-13 lead as we go to the 4th, and we're just getting started. 2nd and 6 now. Cousins to Vernon Davis. Again, we talked about him this morning. Maybe not the same Vernon Davis as we've seen when he was playing in San Francisco all those years, but boy, was he productive today. 36 yards, the team's 2nd leading receiver, and he's got the Redskins moving. 2nd and goal from the 7. Cousins, the former Arkansas Razorback tight end, now Redskins tight end Jeremy Sprinkle. And he's going to sprinkle a little victory dance in the end zone, because with that touchdown, it has the Saints down 15 with 5:58 to go. And then the Saints become the throwback Saints. Forget the running game. Let's start throwing the ball. 2nd and 5 at the 30. Breeze to Kobe Fleener, 25 yards. 1st and 10 from the 30. Breeze again to Fleener, right across the middle. Great catch down at the 5. Jay Gruden challenges the catch, loses the challenge, but it stops the clock. Saints set it up. 2nd goal from the 3. Breeze to Josh Hill, 3 yards for the touchdown. 9 passes, 1 run on the drive that took just over 3 minutes and went 75 yards. Washington now, 3rd and 1. This might be the play of the game. 3rd and 1. P. Ryan can't get the first down, so the Saints are going to get the ball back, and you've got to get down to the 2-minute warning. And the black and gold get it after Washington punts. 1st and 10 from their own 13. Breeze back to pass, but it's his 2nd interception of the game, and the Redskins can seal it. Or can they? Illegal hands to the face on the defense. Take another look. Right there. And with that, Coleman getting slapped in the face mask with the illegal hands, take off the interception. Saints keep the ball. Remember that theme of second chances? The Saints are going to take advantage. Breeze to Michael Thomas, 17 yards, heads to the sideline and gets out of bounds. 1st and 10 from the 35. Breeze to Ginn Jr. This one's good for 18 yards. You keep it going. 1st and 10 now from the 47. Breeze scrambles. Kobe Fleener outruns one defender, and he's off to the races. 29 yards, and he gets out of bounds. Now we have a minute 11 on the clock. 1st and 10 from the 18. Breeze to Alvin Kamara. Point, point, gets it, and then all of a sudden the Redskins start playing touch football instead of tackle football. Take another look at what Kamara's able to do. Forget leaping, he's going to go take a seat. Watch this. Out of the backfield, holds his position, and then Kamara bobbles once, twice, gets it, goes through 4 defenders, and waltzes into the end zone. What do you know? It's a 2-point game, but the Saints have to go for the 2-point conversion. And Deuce, can you draw it any better than this?
I mean, it's a staple play. They freeze the defense. They have run this play with so much success, and we come back and we see it later on with Mark Ingram running the same play.
Misdirection. Washington obviously didn't have a clue. He gets in. We're tied at 31. 5 plays on the drive, all passes, and now the Saints and the Dome are rocking. But wait a minute, Washington still has time. Cousins hits Crowder for 19 yards, who caught 3 passes on this drive for 41. Next play, Cousins incomplete. There's not a Redskin in sight. The officials are going to discuss this one, and they do drop the flag for intentional grounding. So now the Redskins, who were in field goal position, lose field goal position. As you see the play again, he just chunks it to the sideline, and nobody there. So the final play of regulation, the Redskins trying to get something done. Von Bell gets into the backfield where the Saints had trouble getting to Cousins, and he gets to him. The clock runs out. We're tied at 31, and we're going to overtime, where the Redskins won the toss. On 2nd and 10 from the 25, more pressure finally on Cousins. This time courtesy of Cam Jordan, and he sacks him for the loss of 10. Washington has to punt, and after seeing the Saints offense in those last 2 drives pass the ball like crazy, and Drew Brees without an interception, they run it. And here comes angry Mark Ingram. Left side, 20 yards and a 1st down. Next play from the Redskins, 41. And there's what Deuce was talking about. And once again, the Redskins can't stop it. This time, Ingram goes for 31. He's down to the 10-yard line, and Sean Payton says, forget this, let's go home. Sends Will Lutz onto the field, and from 28 yards, it is good. Down 15 with 5:58 to go. The Saints come back in overtime and get the win over the Redskins for win number 8 in a row. It's the 2nd win versus Washington under Sean Payton since he's been the head coach in New Orleans. The 1st over the Redskins in New Orleans since 1992. And as we mentioned earlier, the biggest 4th-quarter comeback in team history marks the 8th straight win as the Saints get it by 3 in OT.
I would say, to answer your question, I know where you're going, that 09 Redskin game, was that it? Something like that. That's fair. And there was a game where, if you were there, that was a game we probably didn't deserve to win. They were down, you know, hitting a 20-some-yard field goal and missed it. And then we got a few plays and then got it into overtime. And that was that type of win, though. I just finished saying that. I think that would be a very fair comparison, and then later look back on the significance of it.
How would you rank this win since you've been here?
It's the most important win just because it's the next win. Honestly, I don't know where I'd rank it. If this leads to a playoff run, this leads to a Super Bowl, then we'll discuss it. At the end of the day, we have an end goal in mind, and we're steadily climbing towards that.
You ever been a part of a bigger win since you've been here than this one?
I have. National championship.
No, I mean here.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, this is my biggest one. It was what a time, man. It was a crazy game. I love being a part of this. It really helped this team grow. That big-time win right there.
Told you we had a lot to show you, and we have a lot to talk about. What a win by the Black and Gold. Scott, as we were talking earlier today, you were saying that Washington was beating New Orleans by playing New Orleans football. They were matching and balancing the run game and the pass game, which we've seen over the last 7 wins. But then all of a sudden, the Saints decided to go back circa 2009. And Drew Brees went all Drew Brees again. He was perfect, what, 10 for 10 in the last 2 drives? And then they went in overtime by running the ball again.
Yeah, I think all of us have said this year, well, they're running the ball because they're protecting an old quarterback. Drew Brees is getting older. Until the last 2 drives, he shows the old man still got it. He can still throw the ball around. But the formula for this Saints team has been to run the ball, play in front, play ahead of the chains, and make the other team chase you the whole game. Well, this game didn't turn out like that to start off. The Washington Redskins did a great job. They ran the ball effectively. Their running back averaged 5 yards a carry. Kirk Cousins made effective throws. He hung there in the pocket even when he was getting hit. So it was one of those games that stressed the Saints for the first time in a long time, and it was great to see them respond late in the game and come back and play some different type of football to get a win.
And certainly, though, when you needed it down the stretch, Deuce, and you've been calling the games, I know if you watch these games, we saw vintage Drew Brees end of the first half, end of the second half. It's that 2-minute drill when he got a little bit in the hurry-up offense and the settle where he looked most comfortable today, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so. You know, this was probably the most pressure as well. We've seen our offensive line give up as far as just pure pressure, you know. And Drew sees that blitz right there, you know. Alvin Kamara does a great job of picking it up, but when you see him roll out of that pocket there, he knows he's short as far as the guy's concerned. You know, one of the things that I thought the Redskins did a good job was sitting on the first route option of the Saints. You know, they jumped a lot of screen passes. They made Drew go other places with the football, but the Saints were able to adjust. And like you said, when they went 2-minute offense is when they had the most success. And, you know, it was at the end of the quarter and obviously to be able to come back in the fourth quarter as well.
And it just shows you what it's like to have a quarterback with that type of experience. Not panicking at all, the clock is running, but to get those points at the end of the first half and Washington was going one direction, then they wind up not getting the field goal. They have to punt, and Drew takes them down the field for the field goal, and then going 10 for 10 in the final 2 plays or final 2 drives of the fourth quarter to lead them to those 2 touchdowns, and then the 2-point conversion was outstanding. But you just hinted on something that we wanted to talk about next. In this streak, Drew has been relatively clean in the win streak. But as you mentioned today, this is probably the most we've seen him getting pressure and feeling uncomfortable in this win streak. So the Saints, a concern about the protection?
Well, I don't know if necessarily it's concerned. I mean, you have to understand, Kerrigan is a good pass rusher. You know, we saw Junior Gillette be able to bring some pressure. Preston Smith, all these guys are good pass rushers, and it's an odd front for them. I mean, this Redskins team is traditionally a 3-down team, but they're going to bring 4 guys. And right there, you know, one thing that you see is Kerrigan gets a lot of pressure. I think, you know, Ryan Ramczyk probably played a little bit too high, and when that happens, that's not a good thing. That's the same thing here. You know, the sack comes in off of the guard, off of the left side, well, actually off of Max Unger, but, you know, I think Drew was just trying to step up, and he wasn't able to. So the Redskins did a good job of keeping the Saints off of balance and just being able to get pressure on Drew.
Scott, most of this that we saw, this contact with Drew, came early in the ball game. So was it something the Saints did differently on those big drives, especially in the fourth quarter, or was it something that Washington did differently? We talked about Kerrigan this morning. We talked about the defensive pressure. Did they change what they were doing, or did the Saints adjust something, which is why Drew was so much cleaner at the end of the ball game?
Well, I think a lot of it was the Redskins got gassed, and they got way too conservative. Late there in the game, they were up by 15. They went with the prevent, cover 2. They were just letting them check everything down. Well, if you're going to let teams check it down like the Saints did, you got to be good tacklers, and the Redskins weren't making enough tackles in space, and that's how the Saints kept moving the ball. But I really think this Redskins defense wore down. We talked about early this morning in the show. A lot of injuries, almost 20-some injuries on the injury report. There's a lot of guys who haven't played a lot of football for the Redskins on the field today, and I think they got gassed towards the end of that game.
Well, certainly we saw what Drew was able to do through the air down the stretch, but once again, when it came down by the end of the ball game, it was the running game that certainly had an effect. Mark Ingram, how about this for efficiency? 11 carries, 134 yards, and a touchdown. And in the process, move over, big boy. You got some company with you. Mark Ingram becomes just the 2nd running back to total more than 5,000 yards next to this man right here. And what a way to do it, especially those 2 big runs in overtime to set up the game-winning field goal. Our Saints insider Mike Neighbors had a chance to catch up with Mark Ingram after the game.
You've been part of some huge wins here since you've been in New Orleans. I mean, where does this one rank?
Man, this at the top of the list for sure, man. Had some great wins, but you know, we had a playoff win in Philly in 13, first road playoff win in franchise history. That's a big one, and we've had some great wins, but today, we're down 15 in the fourth quarter, and being able to be resilient, everybody have belief, and come back is definitely top of my list.
Can you say enough about this offense down the stretch, especially your quarterback, the way he performs?
Drew is Drew, man. That's what we expect of him. That's what we believe he's going to do every single week. We had to run 2-minute for a majority of the fourth quarter, And he was awesome, man. He was spectacular, drawing plays up in the dirt, telling guys do things on the run, and guys capitalized. AK, Fleener, whoever it was. We had big plays down the stretch, and that's what helped us be resilient and overcome the deficit that we were in.
Finally, you know, there's a lot of football left to be played, but when a team wins a game like this, it has to be a special feeling moving forward now.
Yeah, man. Like I said, great teams. You might not always play well, you might not always play your best game, but finding a way to overcome the adversity and find a way to win the game when you're not playing well, when everything's not going your way, just having that belief, that resilience that you will come back, that you will fight to the end no matter what. That says a lot about the character of our team and the belief we have in one another. So we got to continue to build on this. We got to continue to improve, get better, because you know, we're going to play in bigger games and more important games. So we got to keep improving. We got to keep getting better.
Thanks for your time. A lot of Mark Ingram early, a lot of Alvin Kamara late. The result, the Saints get a huge victory here at home against the Redskins. Back to you guys.
Thanks so much. Back to you. When we come back, we will also take you behind the enemy lines in what was certainly a deflated locker room for the Redskins after the tough loss today at the Dome in overtime. And later, we'll take a look at the Saints' next opponent, who are playing in the other highlighted game of the afternoon with the Rams in Minnesota, taking on the surging Vikings. Welcome back to Saints Tonight here on CST. It was very interesting watching these numbers throughout the ball game as Washington had a distinct advantage until the game started getting close to the end, and then the Saints really vaulted. Look at this total yards as the Saints go for 535 in the win over the Redskins. Neither one of these teams very good on third down. Deuce, I got to be honest, it felt like Washington was much more efficient when it came to those. We know they were good on fourth downs, but it felt like they were more efficient on thirds.
Yeah, definitely seemed like they were a lot more efficient on third down. I guess they were making a lot more money on second down plays and, you know, where they weren't getting themselves in bad third down situations. But, you know, if you're the Saints, you're upset about two different things, and that's not only your third down play, but the penalties. So I think those, when you talk about it from a team aspect, that's what you have to definitely clean up. I mean, because there was some situations where you had the Redskins at 1st and 20 or 1st and 25, and they come back and convert those plays.
Yeah, and it seemed like the Saints were having trouble, at least early in the ballgame, trying to convert on those same plays until they became much more efficient down the stretch. Of course, there is a downside of what we have to talk about from today's game, Scott, and we focused on this at the top of the highlights when we picked it up mid-first quarter. Washington was going for a big play, left corner of the end zone. It's not complete, but the biggest news of that play was the loss of Marshawn Lattimore. He stayed down for a while. It was the ankle. At first, quite honestly, for a lot of people at the Dome, we thought it was his wrist when he went down. Then when he got up and started hobbling, you realized, okay, it was something else. He tried to give it a go for one play in the second half. Here again is the play when he went down. This is very early in the game. You can see just over 3 minutes have gone on the clock. But let's talk about, we know how magical he's been on the field now. This injury and the impact of not having him on that Saints defense with the stretch that's coming up.
Yeah, this is a huge loss, and I think when you look at what he's been able to do for this defense and locking his side of the field down, as soon as he went out, you saw Washington take more shots to that side of the field. They didn't care who was out there playing corner. They just knew that Lattimore wasn't out there, and they liked their chances. So you're going to get much more of that going forward if he misses time. It'll be interesting to see just how long this injury holds him out. But, you know, anytime you have an injury like that, when I initially saw him squirming on the ground, you initially think knee. You think a lot worse, but it could be, if it's an ankle sprain, a high ankle sprain, those can be very painful and lingering. He tried to give it a go, but this is a huge loss for this defense.
Yeah, when we saw him squirming, you weren't sure. We all thought it because when he went down, you saw his hands go down, and maybe he had popped his wrist back or something here on the turf. And we all noticed what you said, Deuce. I'm sure you noticed it calling the game, that they were picking where Lattimore was going to be. They picked on it early and often, and Redskins found success. So that Saints defense now, how do they adjust, since we don't know yet the extent of the injury and how long he could be out? What adjustments does the Saints defense have to make?
Well, one of the things that hopefully you get is you get Kenny Vaccaro back. You know, that allows you maybe to shorten down that roster a little bit, you know, as far as having to play as many corners as they did today, you know, because whether it's Harris or PJ, you know, playing in the slot, he can do that. He allows you to do that, but he's fighting a growing injury himself. So what he allows you to do is to play a lot more man, and that's Marshawn Lattimore. You know, when you have to play zones, good quarterbacks are going to find those soft spots in those zones. And I think he'll be okay, because after the game, as the Saints were celebrating, he came back out on the field to celebrate with them. So, you know, that shows you that they felt pretty good with him being able to move around. You know, he may have had some ice on it previously, but he was out there celebrating with them.
Well, let's go ahead and take that as a good sign that he was out there and certainly deserved to celebrate. One of those celebrating as well, Alvin Kamara. He now has a touchdown in his last 4 games. It was certainly a big yardage day for Mark Ingram, as we discussed earlier. But was there any bigger play than the double bobble catch for the touchdown and then the 2-point conversion for Kamara, helping send the game to overtime and get the Saints a win? Afterwards, Mike Neighbors had a chance to talk to him.
just talk about at the end, the bobble, what was going through your mind, and the relief of getting in there.
Man, took my eyes off it a little bit. Just trying to make something happen, but thankfully it kind of bobbled in front of me, and I was able to, you know, track it and keep my eye on it, catch it, and get into the end zone.
You didn't have long to enjoy that. You had to complete the two-point conversion. Take me through that play.
So, two-point conversion, we had it dialed up the drive before. You know, that was a possible call we were having. And when the call came in, you know, we knew we worked it all week, and we knew the look we wanted, and we got it, and we got in there. Josh Hill had a great block.
This 8-game winning streak, you guys have won in so many ways, but you haven't won like this in overtime. And what does this do for the confidence moving forward now?
It's a defining win. You know, I think it gives us even more confidence, you know, that we can go in and be down and not get down on ourselves and come back and get a great victory, you know, for these fans, for ourselves, you know, it's incredible, you know, it's an incredible game, and it's just magical, you know.
Great game, thank you. Alvin Kamara, great game for the Saints, really defining moments at the end. Back to you guys.
It certainly was, Mike. Thanks so much. And Mike, still to come, is going to talk to Will Lutz, who certainly had a big day, and of course his one-on-one with quarterback Drew Brees. But with the Saints playing at home today, that means there's another side to the story, and that's the story behind enemy lines, because Eric Ritchie ventures there each and every week during the home game, and at least Eric knows the shortcuts, because this is now the second time that our own Eric Ritchie has been the only one in the opposing media room waiting for a press conference when the coach walked in and nobody else was there. Jay Gruden walked in. Evidently, they were stuck on the elevators and didn't understand the concept of time. But our Eric Ritchie was there, and he waited and did get reaction behind enemy lines.
Again, a full arsenal of targets behind enemy lines from a pair of regional players who came into the Superdome and both scored touchdowns, to a defensive back who got into it with Sean Payton at the beginning of halftime. But we begin with Junior Gillette, who for the first time was playing against the Saints, who in a highly publicized move cut him back in 2015. I know earlier this week you said it would be a surreal experience coming back here into this visiting locker room. What was this entire experience like for you, Junior?
Just like I said, it'd be surreal. Felt weird. It feels weird just being in this locker room right now. It hurts even worse that we didn't pull that win off. We had them exactly where we wanted, and you know, just a lot of errors on our end. It's a really good team, and we came out fighting. I don't see any reason why we couldn't pull that win off. Got to blame the defense, because we got them backed up. We got to find a way to get the ball back.
What was it like going up against your ex-teammates and guys you used to go up against in practice and those offensive linemen?
It was okay. It was just like any other game. I take it, you know, strictly business, nothing personal. Just go out there and win. You know, I wasn't out there trying to, you know, be friends with anybody.
As for the regional guys, both found the end zone. Tulane's Ryan Grant, a 40-yarder in the third quarter that he actually walked into the end zone. And Arkansas rookie tight end Jeremy Sprinkle, whose first career catch was a 7-yard touchdown.
I mean, we've been practicing that play since, you know, like week 2, you know, just one of the goal line passes we had in, and, you know, I'm just trying to go out here and continue, you know, show the coaches that, you know, I'm dedicated to the game plan and things like that. I'm paying attention, and I'm ready to step up when my name is called.
First of all, if you can, just what it's like to come back here in the NFL.
It was cool, man. You know, it's just great to be back, play in the Superdome again, you know what I'm saying? It was a great experience.
Tell me about the touchdown.
It's just a little touchdown. I ain't really talk about it, you know. It is what it is.
Just upset with the loss right now?
Yeah, of course. You know, it's a heartbreaker, but it is what it is. We good. We all right. The Saints are a good team.
During the game, CST's Paul Boron put this on Twitter. As teams left the field, Saints coach Sean Payton and Redskins defensive back DJ Swearinger were yelling at each other. And let's just say they weren't saying Happy Thanksgiving. So we asked Swearinger what happened.
We're just two competitors, you know, talking it out. You know, in the game, it gets heated. He was mad at me because Ted again threw me the ball, and I held it as you should on defense. They give me the ball. I'm not going to give it to the ref when the time's ticking, so I'm just hold the ball, you know. And he was like, he's holding the ball. I'm like, man, your player gave me the ball. You should be getting on your player, you know what I mean? So, and, you know, we had some words, and that's the competitors in both of us. You know, he's a great competitor, got the utmost respect for everybody in that organization, you know. There's no disrespect at all. It's just competitors doing what competitors do, competing.
Behind enemy lines at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, Eric Ritchie for Saints Tonight.
People were wondering, that was a big moment there. A lot of boos cascading in the Dome. Everybody saw what happened there down at the end. We were making some comments at the Dome, worried about the Saints office, saying that if the halftime updates in the Dome were focusing on your kicker, That may be a problem, saying what the Saints offense was or was not doing, but in the end, you had to be serious. What Will Lutz was able to do today for the Saints was huge, especially the big long field goal he had early in this ball game.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, and he's been, you know, pretty much magical for you. You know, yes, he's missed some kicks, he's missed some extra points, but, you know, for the most part, he has been steady, and, you know, whether it's 40 yards or 50 yards, you're expecting him to make those, and so that is definitely something that's different for Sean, because we know that he can rotate through kickers just like that.
Yeah, but, you know, he hit the game winner, but certainly that big one when the Saints got that opening drive and the offense stalled, and then to get the one right before half to give the Saints a little more momentum. Will Lutz was nice enough to talk to Mike Neighbors after the game.
All right, guys, lots of heroes for the Saints in this huge comeback win. One of them, their kicker, Will Lutz. Just talk about the game-winning kick after all this team has been through, what your mindset was.
Yeah, it's tough to keep your heart rate down in situations like that. But I mean, the offense and defense, the way they played in overtime there, you know, they did the work. They put me in an easy situation, and you know, it's just relying on your mechanics there and finishing the game.
With about 3 minutes left, you guys were down by 15. What was the mindset on the sideline for this football team?
Yeah, it's tough to stay up during those situations. You know, I think this team, this locker room, special. So when you get down like that, it's you know, it's an attitude that hey, we're not out yet. You know, we played at the last minute, and it was a good win.
When you guys win in all different ways in this winning streak, this was just a different way, but in the way you came back, what does this do for this football team moving forward now?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, you know, you win these big blowout games the last couple weeks, and you know, we haven't really been tested at the end of a game yet, and to show that we can find a way to climb back into it, I think it's important. So, you know, it helps the locker room, it helps everything when you win in that fashion. So, you know, we didn't make it easy, but we got the win.
And finally, for a young kicker like yourself, to kick a game winner in this fashion, what does it do for your confidence?
Hey, like I said, offense, defense put me in the right place. You know, it's a field goal that I'm expected to make. Operation was extremely clean all day. So, yeah, it's good going forward.
Appreciate your time. Will Lutz with the game winner here in the Superdome, the finishing touch on an epic win for the Saints. Back to you guys.
Mike, thanks so much. Early in the program, Deuce was breaking down why Drew Brees felt some of that pressure early in the game, but late in the game, what pressure? It was vintage Drew Brees, who talks to Mike when we come back on Saints Tonight. With the win today for the Saints, it was the 37th fourth quarter or overtime game-winning drive for Drew Brees as a quarterback. And in the last two series, as we mentioned earlier, he was a perfect 10 for 10, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the 2-point conversion to boot. For Drew, his 57th career, 350-plus yard passing game, that, of course, is an NFL record that he keeps adding to. One of those big days where it started off sluggish but ended on an extreme high note. And as he always does, win or lose, Drew sat down to talk to Mike Neighbors.
Thanks a lot, guys. 8 in a row for the New Orleans Saints. And we talk about this over the last 7 games before this one. You guys keep finding different ways to win. Well, congratulations. You found another way.
Yeah, we made it interesting, you know. But listen, ton of confidence and belief on this team. I think we struggled at times during this game. I mean, listen, they're a great opponent. You know, we knew how high-powered their offense was, and their offense was going to have the ability to possess the ball and score points, which they did. I felt like, you know, we were just, when we were called upon to make the plays at the end of the game, we needed to make them, you know. And obviously, you know, to be down 15 points with, you know, 5.5 minutes left is quite an uphill battle. But, you know, to go down and get that first touchdown, and then, man, momentum, defense goes out there, big stop, we get the ball back, and here we go, right down the field and score again. And then, man, once we got the 2-point conversion, we're going to OT. I think there was no doubt in anybody's mind that, you know, we had this stadium on our side. We had the, you know, the noise, the ruckus, the, you know, the belief we were going to win this game.
No doubt about it. You needed 2 touchdown drives and a 2-point conversion to force it to overtime. I know you take pride in being a clutch player down the stretch. You were 11 for 11 in those final 2 drives. How satisfying is that?
Well, listen, there's so many guys made plays at the end of this game. You know, Kobe Fleener came up with some big plays. Ted Ginn came up with some big plays.
O-line. You'd be modest. I knew you'd be modest.
The running backs. I mean, everybody played their role and did their job and did a great job. And, you know, listen, the 2-minute drill is something we practice all the time. All the time. You're always thinking about, you know, being able to make plays in those situations to put points on the board and help your team win. And, you know, whether it's before halftime or at the end of a game, we're all going to do what we're called to do.
Called Kamara's number, and he was bobbling the ball a little bit. I know this is a nerve-wracking game, but what was going through your mind when you saw that play?
Well, it's funny because you see the coverage, and I kind of looked over at him and I said, hey, go win. You know, you're getting the ball. Go win. Just based upon the coverage, you know that was the matchup. And, So boom, boom, you know, he makes a great play to get open, but just a lot of bodies in there, you know, so you're trying to find a lane to throw in the ball. And I didn't see the bobble until the very last minute, you know, because my vision was blocked as well. But all of a sudden I see the ball up in the air, and I'm thinking, how'd that just happen? He didn't get hit. And everybody kind of paused there for a second, and then he told me later, he goes, I went up to snatch it and then just, you know, braced for impact, you know, thinking I'm just about to get, you know, exploded here. And everybody else kind of paused because they don't know what's going on, and then he, you know, and next thing you know, he's in the end zone.
Talk about the two-point conversion. You do so much work to get to that point. If you don't get it, what a heartbreaking loss. But talk about the play call and the satisfaction of getting that play.
Yeah, listen, it was something, you know, obviously you prepare for those situations, you know. I mean, there's a spot on the call sheet that's 2-point plays, you know, and so as you're looking through that, you know, prior to the game, pregame and everything, you're sitting there going, all right, these are obviously critical situations if you're going for two. So obviously we called a play that we'd been working on, felt good about, and the result was good.
Okay, I know you've been real careful about comparisons, but I have to show you this. This was reminiscent to me of the Washington win, your Super Bowl year. You go to overtime. I took this picture before the game. I'm just saying, he was here, and he was eyeing, Robert Meacham was eyeing the Washington Redskins. You believe in some of that sometimes.
Listen, it's crazy how things work out. Obviously, he was instrumental in that game. You know, he causes the fumble, you know, and takes it, runs it for a touchdown, and then he catches the, you know, the game-tying touchdown with about 40 seconds left at the end of the game. Then we go on and win that in OT. It's funny, I beat Washington 3 times, and they've all been in overtime. How about that? That's kind of crazy. 2 at their place and now 1 here. So it's always great games with these guys, but yeah, very fitting that Meacham was here to bring that mojo for us.
Very eerie. All right, finally, moving forward now. You guys win a game like this. You're 8th straight. You have more wins already this year than you've had the last 3 years. What does this do moving forward for this football team?
It's momentum. It's momentum. But we understand just the challenges each and every week. You know, it only gets tougher. The games only get more meaningful. You know, the competition is tough, you know. You know, we're about to go on the road and play a team that's, you know, leading their division, 7-3. I know they lost today, the Rams, but, you know, they're going to be hungry for a win just like us, you know. And, you know, each and every week, it's just so important. But also, I think just for us as a team and being so young, you know, you look at it and say, man, how good can we be, you know? And you come off a win like this where, you know, it all comes together at the right time, you know, even though it wasn't perfect for, you know, the 58 minutes previous to that. But, you know, this is what, man, builds a team. This is what strengthens a team. This is what makes you feel like you can win any game you play.
About it. Great epic win, one for the ages. Appreciate your time. Enjoy this one.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, Drew Brees here in the Superdome. Some Brees magic, maybe some Meacham magic, a lot of magic here. Back to you guys in the studio.
Mike, thank you very much. When we come back, we will take a look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the only other team in the NFC South in action today. Atlanta plays tomorrow night, Carolina on the bye. That as we get ready to wrap up tonight on Saints Tonight. The only other team in the NFC South in action, Tampa Bay, staying in-state, heading to South Florida to take on the Dolphins. Jay Cutler, not good. Had 3 picks within the first quarter and a half. There was one that was in the end zone, scrambles out of here, throws another one right there in the middle of the field. Not a good day for Cutler under center for the Dolphins. Not a good day for the Dolphins, really, overall. But here we go. Let's take a look at this. Last shot, Tampa Bay is kicking off. It just kicked a field goal to go 23-20. That's a total of 43. The over-under is 44. 4 seconds left to go. Miami's trying the whole lateral thing. They're going the wrong way. Don't forget the over-under is 44, and they fumble it in the end zone. That's a bad beat for those who are paying attention. The Buccaneers get the win on that play, 30-20. In other words, it wasn't really a game worthy of many highlights, but it was good to show you a bad beat for those who are in that sort of thing with the over-under. So here is a look at the NFC South standings up to the minute, with the Saints riding that 8-game win streak. Carolina enjoying It's bye week. The Falcons, as we mentioned, they're 5-4. They will play at Seattle tomorrow night on Monday Night Football, and more about their schedule in just a moment. And Tampa Bay, as you just saw, got past the Dolphins today to improve to 3-6. So let's take a look at the Saints' next opponent, where the Saints will be heading out west for the afternoon kick against the highest scoring team in the NFL, the Rams, and who are in Minnesota taking on the Vikings. Todd Gurley gets it into the end zone from 6 yards out early first quarter, and the Rams showing why they're so good at putting points on the board. Problem is the Rams, they wouldn't visit the end zone anymore. Latavius Murray, 8 yards in for the Vikings in the second quarter. We're tied at 7. Later in the second, Rams are driving. Jared Goff hits Cooper Kupp at the 5 to the 2. When he gets to the 1, he coughs it up. Anthony Harris forces the fumble and picks it up for the Vikings. They take advantage. Later in the fourth, it's still tied at 7. Murray again from 2 yards out. He had 95 rushing yards on the day, 14-7 Minnesota. And then later in the fourth, Case Keenum, who was 27 of 38 for 280, hits Adam Thielen, and he's off to the races. 65 yards on this touchdown. For Minnesota, it's their 6th straight win. Case Keenum certainly liked this one, getting past the team that benched him last year. The Rams had a 4-game win streak. It got snapped as Minnesota improves to 8-2, 24-7. They get the win over the Rams. So that's where the Saints will be next week, and we've been talking about the big stretch here. So the Rams have to play at Minnesota. They get the Saints next week, and then Philadelphia, as Philadelphia will be in the middle of a 3-game road swing. The players all like to look at the next game. We're not playing. When I say we, you all aren't playing. I haven't ever. You got 6 games left, so let's break it up to 3-3. The Saints' next 3 opponents at the Rams, at home against Carolina, which a reminder, folks, that game has now been flexed. It's an afternoon kick at the Dome against Carolina, and then the short week against Atlanta. Take me ahead now, sitting at 8-2 on an 8-game win streak. The next 3 games, what do the Saints have to do to be in prime position to extend the season?
Well, if it's me, Scott, I would say probably, you want to obviously win every game, but be 2-1. Particularly take care of your home field, be able to beat Carolina. You have to steal one either this next home game against the Rams. I mean, as far as you have to steal it on the road against the Rams or go to Atlanta and steal one. You would love to win all 3 of them, but you have to go 2-1 in that stretch, in my opinion.
You agree with that?
Yeah, this week is going to be a tough road test. You got to go out west. I think LA got surprised a little bit today by Minnesota. Minnesota has a very good defense. They got shocked on the road, but I think after the Rams game, now you come back inside your division. Carolina, who I keep writing off, but they're hanging around. They're right there behind the Saints, 1 game or 1.5 games back, and then you go on a short week to Atlanta. Those 2 games inside the division, and I've said all along, the fact that Atlanta is late on this schedule worries me because they have a good quarterback, good receiver, they have good running game. If anything, you don't want the Atlanta Falcons to spoil your seeding come playoff time.
Interestingly, with the other 2 opponents, too, Minnesota plays into this. The Saints have already had their Minnesota experience to start the season. Carolina has the Jets coming off the bye week, then the Saints, then Minnesota. Atlanta, if they lose in Seattle tomorrow night, Scott, they'll fall to 5-5. Then they have Tampa Bay, Minnesota, and then a short turnaround against the Saints. By the time the Saints face the Falcons, they might be done. So it really is, it sounds to me like you both are saying, the swing game at home against Carolina.
Well, definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, I know this one is important, as far as the L.A. game is very, very important. But, that one that is turned, I think that's December the 3rd, that game is turning out to be, hey, look, this could be the knockout punch, or this could extend it for a lot of other teams in the NFC South.
Well, they'll have back-to-back afternoon kicks. The afternoon kick next week in L.A. against the Rams, of course, as we always do. Scott and I will be here next Sunday morning to get you ready for Saints game day. 10:30, our Saints insider, Mike Neighbors, he'll have an early wake-up call on the West Coast. He'll join us as we get you ready for the game. And, of course, Deuce will be out west getting ready to call the game on the Saints Radio Network next Sunday night. We'll all be back together to wrap things up. Deuce will join Mike out in L.A. Scott and I will be here in the studios as we wrap up the Saints and the Rams. And, again, a reminder, in 2 weeks, that Carolina game is a home game, and it has been flexed. It will now be an afternoon kick at the Dome as the excitement begins in the stretch run. But the Saints get it off to a good start with a big win over the Washington Redskins. For Mike Neighbors, Eric Ritchie, Scott Shanley, and Deuce McAllister, I'm Victor Howell. Thanks for joining us, and good night from all of us at CSU.